And so essentially, we have no way out of this mess, because what happened is back when Ben Bernanke was in charge of the Federal Reserve in 2010, he sat before Congress and he lied and said that the quantitative easing policy was going to be temporary and then it would be reversed once the emergency had passed. Oh, that sounds pretty familiar. When did we last have that happen? Oh, right, in 2020, during all the pandemic stimulus stuff. And that's why the government shut down right now, because one of the problems, they passed more stimulus for people receiving benefits from Obamacare. And now the government shut down because the Republicans don't want to continue those pandemic era subsidies and the Democrats do. And that's why it's been shut down for over a month. Take a listen to this. There's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. Well, that's exactly right. Every single time they come around and say something's supposed to be temporary, it ends up being permanent. Oh, well, we're just going to take the dollar off the gold standard for a little while because, you know, we're involved in all these wars. We need extra money. This is the best way to do it. Oh, okay. Well, now, almost 60 years later, we're still off of it, and inflation has spiraled completely out of control. In 2008, well, we're just going to save the biggest automakers and the biggest banks because they're too big to fail, and ultimately that will lead us to a stronger economy. Okay, where did that lead us? In 2020, oh, we have a worldwide pandemic. We need to print $6 trillion and inject it into the economy. Otherwise, the entire economy is going to fail. Okay, now nobody can afford food. Nobody can afford rent, insurance, can't buy a house, anything. And the other thing that has become permanent is the Fed purchasing mortgage-backed securities as well as other government bonds. Because the Fed is basically in its own way. The central bank bought trillions of dollars in mortgage-backed securities at ultra-low yields, which drove mortgage rates to the lowest levels in history and helped inflate an enormous housing bubble. And now a lot of these securities are sitting underwater, and the Fed is only earning roughly 2% on them while paying close to 5% to fund them. That's why you're seeing the national debt climb at exponential rates right now, because they have created the mess and now they're in the thick of it. Basically, these assets are losing value every single day, and by continuing to hold them, they're increasing the national debt, and they can't afford to sell them because who's going to buy? In fact, the Fed owns about a quarter of the mortgage-backed securities market, and if it attempted to liquidate those holdings, the mortgage market would seize up basically immediately, and there would be no more lending for homes unless it would be through private lenders at whatever interest rate they deem appropriate. The only reason interest rates are even at a 6.3% mark right now is because of mortgage-backed securities. If we didn't have this system where the government just bought all these loans, mortgage rates would be whatever lenders assume the appropriate risk is for people to buy a home. That might be in the double-digit territory for all we know. But it doesn't have to be, because they're not the ones taking the risk. And that would actually be a good thing for the overall housing market and the economy, because if the government stopped backing mortgages, then rates would spike overnight and home prices would take a nosedive, and that would be great news for anybody looking to buy a home. Would it be great news for people who own a home and are banking on all that equity to pay their bills? Absolutely not, but that was never a good idea to begin with. And you can't fault the system for you taking unnecessary risk. And the Fed just announced recently that they're going to be ending quantitative tightening, which means they're going to be loosening up their monetary policies even further moving forward. So we're in this situation now where all the emergency policies that were put into place on how this economy is operated are now becoming permanent. We've gotten so used to the stimulus and the artificially low rates that this economy will essentially implode without them. And that's how you know they're going to continue choosing to pump things up to the point of no return rather than let it all collapse and let things happen the way they're supposed to. And so really, the Federal Reserve has created an impossible situation that they're not going to be able to get out of. If they choose the inflation method, which it seems like they are right now, at the expense of people not being able to afford things, well, it's just going to continue driving the cost of everything higher as people's wages don't keep up. And that seems to be the choice they're making. Jerome Powell did say at the last Fed meeting, after they just cut rates by another 25 basis points, that there's no guarantee of another rate cut coming in December. But who knows? It could just be a lie. He's lied about so many other things, so it could be another lie. I'm of the mindset that I believe it when I see it, you know? But ultimately, I'm of the mindset that it doesn't matter what they do, because if they choose the inflation route, great, no one can afford anything. If they choose to save inflation and really cut it down and raise interest rates, it's going to collapse businesses and industries across the board and tank the job market even further. So no matter what they do, they're just going to make one aspect of society much worse for everyone. It's just a matter of choosing your poison, guys. Does it matter if you die from alcohol poisoning or from smoking cigarettes? Not really. They both suck. They're both horrible ways to die, and they both kill you. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.